I'm reading today from Path to Happiness, focusing on the study of attention. And attention is the first of the keywords for hello, related to exploration. The mind is a powerful tool, the most powerful we have. Like any device of power, it is dangerous if misused and requires training to use properly. If properly applied, then the mind can fulfill the desire of will and answer the appetites of curiosity. Usually, the element of air is considered as very characteristic of the processes of mind, and indeed we notice that our thoughts and consequential emotions scatter readily as pressures shift. We cannot control easily what we think and feel, since the mind is so skittishly responsive to external phenomena and also internal releases of hormones. But unless we do, we will blow about as a candle in the wind, or else become rigid and habitual. That which controls the mind is attention. Attention is the focusing of mind. When we concentrate attention, we can channel our thoughts, curiosity, imagination, and feelings upon a specific point of interest with a particular attitude. It is a great achievement to master attention completely, probably almost never accomplished by anyone other than yogis, fakirs, and such types. Yet we can at least improve ours by two classes of exercise. One is inward-looking in the form of meditation, and the other outward-looking as the concentration upon a task or a fascinating experience. The need for us to focus our attention arises whenever we have a question to resolve or a task to accomplish. The threat of harm is often helpful, as indeed we observe when people learn to drive. Youngsters who previously lacked any significant capacity for getting to grips with life become highly present and capable of multitasking under stress, a phrase which describes motoring rather well. The phrase also describes most of daily life for many people. If we cannot concentrate, then we cannot find a useful position in the world, and the penalties are piled on until eventually we are forced to learn how. We must somehow win food and shelter, and this is not often possible without giving these matters our serious concentrated attention. Another condition arises which can only be properly dealt with by learning how to control attention. When, through ill discipline, the mind is allowed freedom to wander without limits, it can be very disturbing. At the very least, this will lead to dreaminess and confusion, and could even be very uncomfortable when this is allowed to become extremely neurotic. Fear-based thoughts can quite quickly dominate the mind in the form of anxiety, pessimism, and even paranoia. The failure to achieve and chronic uncertainty about things generally are indicators of poor attention. Two aspects of attention are evident. Bringing an amorphous congregation of sensory data together is one requirement. In other words, pulling our outer sensory data towards a center for perception and interpretation. This information registers through eyes and ears, of course, and yet there are many more sources than 5. What is called gut feeling is just one example of how the body responds to data. A good teacher can calibrate their awareness of how well their message is being understood by noticing the stress upon their own voice and its corresponding tone. A lucky poker player has another strategy. We each have our own way. To integrate this massive input of data into laser-sharp points of optimal influence requires that we learn how to find the pineal gland. This is a point at the center of the head and corresponds to what esotericists call the third eye. It takes training to master the ability to locate it, but then what doesn't? Meditation can lead to this skill. For those reluctant to learn meditation, sport is an excellent choice. So too is playing a musical instrument, especially with others. It is frequently referred to as being in the zone. When we align ourselves completely with this point, then an extraordinary perceptual capacity is offered. We can know what previously we did not. Questions dissolve. Notice the difference between questions dissolve and questions are answered. The true resolution of a quest is for its answer to become irrelevant. Seekers are attached to finding, and yet a higher state is that of impartial observation. In this case, the open third eye is employed as an agency through which to experience all, rather than facilitate the power of understanding and manifestation. As children, we are made to develop control of concentration. Society supports this, yet some consider such force harmful to the child's well-being and suggest that play is better than work to achieve the required result. Putting aside the question of age, though, it is clear that both approaches have their advantages. In some cases, the mind will effortlessly learn to hold itself unblinkingly upon the target of its fascination, and in other cases become obedient to a powerfully stubborn force of will. Two examples illustrate the two outcomes. In one, a person's ability to read the nuances of expression in another's face can reach a near superhuman degree of perceptual acuity between lovers at play. In another, a tired driver can bully their mind to keep awake, even when the body absolutely insists on closing the eyes to rest. We see that both joyful fascination and risk of death seriously are effective tools to promote excellence of concentration. It is well known in Zen training that the master whacks the student very courteously with a stick if they allow their attention to wander. This is not punishment. This is the employment of the body's reluctance to experience pain as a device to help school the student's mind towards exemplary control of attention. If not through awe, then through discipline, the carrot and stick approach. Most people are enslaved by mind control techniques such as political propaganda, marketing, peer group pressure, and parental dominance, and so on. A mind that is out of our own control is certain to be manipulated by these forces. Only through control of our thoughts can we control our own circumstances and experiences. Further, it is unpleasant to live in confusion because such a mental state gives rise to an equivalent state of emotionality, uncertain, ever-changing emotions upon which no solid future can be constructed. A trained attitude of attention generates a condition of searching curiosity and genuine concern. It's like when we travel abroad. We enjoy a little bit of culture shock because it stimulates a deeper involvement in our here and now circumstances. We look below the surface of things to determine what they mean. It is meaningful and helpful to think of life as a movie in which we are the scriptwriter, the director, the protagonist, and even the antagonist. We create the story with our attention, and the only real test of a good story is in its entertainment value. Part of the entertainment is invested in the feelings we have, and for some people the more poignant the better. Some like romance, some want a thrill, some yearn for spectacle, and some actually enjoy violence and horror. Most of us like drama, at least to some extent, without which there is no story. What we place our attention on determines our life scenarios, the movie we are creating. And the quality of attention determines how we experience them. By training ourselves to control our attention, we can make these determinations consciously and correct any errors of choice. Attention has great power. Focusing upon any scenario will certainly change its outcome. This has application in counseling and therapy, where the therapist can stimulate the resolution of an emotional problem simply by directing high-quality listening attention. It also has impact upon the realization of goals. Attainment is inevitable for a person who holds a firm course. Keep your eyes on the prize. Also, by noticing the echo of what we put out, we can much more easily adjust our direction and take others' feedback into account. It is quite shocking sometimes to observe how few people understand that what happens to them is the echo of what earlier actions they took and what expectation they hold. By observing cause and effect, we reclaim authorship of our lives and authority over our situations. To develop greater power of attention. We use the wazifa pair, Ya Basir, Ya Sammi. Basir is divine sight. Sammi is divine hearing. And yet, Basir I would focus in the third eye, and Sammi in the heart. So when we're hearing or listening to someone, it's to include the heart, not just the ears. Ya Basir, Ya Sammi. 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 Amen.